Flyperbole, flip, flip, flyperbole. Flyperbole, flip, flip, flyperbole. Flyperbole, flip, flip, flyperbole.
Folks, we're back. A little Friday afternoon pod. Friday evening? I guess it's a happy hour pod, but
It's a happy hour pod, yeah.
yeah, but I'm just I don't know, I'm tired. I don't feel like cracking a cold one. I think I had a thirsty Thursday. So, I think that's part of the reason I don't necessarily feel the need to crack a cold one on this right now. I'll probably crack a cold one after this, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, folks, how's it going? Apologies in advance if I'm popping any peas today because I misplaced my pop filter somewhere around the house. I don't know. I don't usually take it off my mic, but we used it as a prop in a sketch last night, a comedy sketch, and I don't know what I did with it. So it's around. I just have no idea. So hopefully I remember my broadcast lessons from college oh so long ago and refrain from popping those peas.
What you need to do is slightly turn away from the mic whenever you say a P word. Kind of like how, do you remember Chocolate Rain? The song Chocolate Rain?
Rain.
And remember how he would be like singing it in the video and he would always turn away and then he would have like asterisks. He's like, I turn away from the mic so I can breathe.
There you go.
What a time. Early YouTube classic.
It is an early YouTube classic right there. But yeah, my mic feels so naked otherwise. I mean, this is how I think most people use it. But I've had a pop filter forever. It's a good tool right there. And, for a crude transition, but one that works, a P word that has come up recently on the podcast, pineapple. We were talking about last week, the lady who tried to throw the pineapple over the fence. And I have an update on that. She made it. She threw the pineapple over the fence.
Unbelievable.
Thank God. Thank God.
I mean, I've been on pins and needles all week waiting to hear the update. So
I was having quite a day. I was walking Brucey the other night in South Philly, and I just had like the weirdest like little walk. So first, I'm not going to go and do the screen share because I don't feel like it. But the first thing I saw was this creepy ass doll head that somebody placed between a chain link fence and a wood fence.
There's a lot of stuff like that, like in Fishtown too.
Yeah.
Like creepy little Easter eggs just kind of scattered around the neighborhood.
So I enjoyed that, but it was also creepy as hell.
Very. Yeah.
And then we had our pineapple update. So yeah, they made it into the lot, and
God bless.
Wunderbar. Yeah. I was talking to a couple people, and it seems that the pineapple came from the Italian Market Festival, which it traveled a long way, baby, to get there, at least a mile into that part of South Philly. And I guess somebody left it in front of her house, which is why she asked me if there was a fair in town or something.
Okay, yeah.
But it still doesn't...
So she tosses it over the fence?
Right. That's the thing. It doesn't resolve why she didn't just throw it into a trash can, into her own trash, mind you. She just decided, I'm going to carry this a block and toss it over a fence into the slot. I'm going to litter in a way that is wildly inconvenient to me rather than just throw it into my trash.
And not subtle at all. Like she's drawing quite a bit of attention to herself, tossing this, pineapple over a fence like it's a bouquet at a wedding. So I don't know what her objective there was. Like, certainly it wasn't subtlety. It wasn't convenience. So I don't know what she was doing.
Well, subtlety is not a word that is known to South Philadelphia.
Apparently not. I guess not.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could say that about the entire city of Philadelphia, really, but especially South Philadelphia. It is a brash, bold part of the city.
I was walking somewhere in South Philly, and I saw just like an outline of a human body on the sidewalk, and I was like, "Fuck yes, this is."
What part were you walking on?
I can't remember the name of the bar we went to, but we went somewhere for karaoke a couple weeks ago. Me and Joe DeMarini,
Did you go
Italian
to
Joe.
Ray's Happy Birthday Bar?
I've been there multiple times, but we were not there. We were somewhere like pretty far down in South Philly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could keep guessing, but it doesn't matter because it could be anywhere really. But
Yeah.
oh, cool. You saw the chalk outline. That's a comforting sight right there.
It was great.
Yeah, it's a classic right
I
there.
hope it was real. I really do.
It honestly, that also could be 50-50 because much like the doll head that I saw, it could just be a weird art project by somebody, or it could be a legit chalk outline of a body. Who's to say?
Do they still do that anymore though? Like the chalk outlines?
Oh, I'll be honest. I have no idea. If my neighbor across the street was still a cop, I might go and ask him, but he moved out like 2 weeks ago. So I can't ask him anymore. Yeah, it is a bummer.
That does suck.
Maybe the new neighbors are cops. I don't know. I can go ask.
Just
show up at their house and go, "Hey, are you cops?" That's not suspicious at all. That doesn't make me look shady as shit.
Be like it'll be like the scene from The Departed where everyone's just walking by. They're like, "Hey, you a cop?
You a cop?
Is this a cop?" The Boston accent.
The Boston accent, just like the Philadelphia accent, the Boston accent is just it's musical, it's comforting. I wish I just had a white noise of the Boston accent to put me to sleep every night.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what better to lull you to sleep? So
nothing better, nothing less abrasive in this world than the Boston accent.
Certainly you wouldn't listen to ocean waves lightly crashing.
That's actually
on the shore.
what I listen to.
Is it actually?
Yes. Because I can't be trusted with my own thoughts and I need distractions wherever possible. Yeah. I have like 2 fans going, a dehumidifier, and ocean waves.
I do need a fan. That's a non-negotiable. That has to happen. And then
I run very hot.
So I don't play like sound effects when I go to sleep because normally the fan's enough for me. But if I did play sound effects, I think I would play rain pouring down. I do love that sound because it's just like a constant, like kind of low hum or whatever. And honestly, Steve, tonight, I may not need that because it looks like we're all going to die tonight in Philadelphia. Where there's a tornado warning, there's a flood warning, there's a coastal flood. Like, I don't know what's going on. So
we're having a good time, folks. Yeah. A tornado warning is just wild. So yeah, if this podcast starts to just like swirl about and I'm in the air, then so long. Thanks for all the fish. Good night and good hockey.
We may legitimately be thrown out of the frame of these screens during the recording of this episode, and it's because of the tornado. So you'll just be watching us and then whoop, just there you go. And it'll kind of be like in Django Unchained. When the girl's like, or when Django says, "Say goodbye, Miss Laura," and she's like, "Bye, Miss Laura," and then he shoots Miss Laura and she goes flying backwards. That's kind of what it'll be like.
There you go. Yeah. I'm thinking, classic Wizard of Oz, like da 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 da. Now, if this is, of course, my final words right here, just tell my dad that I did it all for the nookie, and he'll know what I mean.
As you should. What else is there in life, Steve?
There is nothing else in life. And who's getting just a little bit of the old proverbial nookie right now? Tyson Foerster. Tyson Foerster, who has signed just a little modest deal, a little bridge deal. And we got some Flyers news to talk about. It's a little bit of Flyers news, but it's some Flyers news.
There's a few things going on this week. It's interesting.
There's some irons in the fire. The hot stove is starting to heat up. Somebody's got one of those big like accordions that they use in like old timey like fireplaces.
Yep.
And they're putting it on the embers for the Flyers, and there's some stuff heating up. But let's start with Typho. 2 deals signed in the past 2 days. Tyson Foerster and Helge Grans. I believe that's the pronunciation, right? Helge.
I think I don't know. I just say Helge. I know that's probably not right, but
Helge from Hey Arnold, right?
I remember someone suggested that is actually the pronunciation. But
well, let's call him Helge G, like Severance, Helge.
Yeah.
And Helge signed a 2-year deal, and Typho signed a 2-year deal for very different money. I actually have no idea what Grans' deal is for, but
very little.
Very little. It doesn't matter. He might not even be with the big club. In fact, my expectation is that he won't be. Mm-hmm. I did like the limited look we got at Grans last season. I thought he was pretty solid. He
wasn't bad. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like he's been solid for the Phantoms. He's very good for me in video games. he's the second pair defenseman for me of the virtual Flyers right now. So he's got that going for him. So clearly the potential is there. But yeah, I like Grans. No, not much to really comment on that. You might as well give him a shot and see how it plays out, because the defense is kind of interesting over the next couple of years, where we've said this a few times. I like a lot of the pieces, but I don't necessarily know who's long-term and who isn't for the Flyers defense right now. There's a lot of things that could change. A lot of that depends on free agency this year. A lot of it depends, and next year, obviously, a lot of it depends on what they do at the draft. And I heard the combine could get spicy, which I've never heard of in hockey before.
That would be awesome if that's like the thing this year. It feels like every NHL offseason, there's like a weird thing that happens. And it's like, maybe this year will be the year like where the combine is the new place to do all the negotiating. Cause I know the draft is now decentralized. So it's not like GMs can just walk over to the, it's not like the Flyers can just walk over to the Minnesota Wild table and be like, we want to talk Rossi. You know what I mean? Maybe that's where it's going to happen. Maybe it's the combine. That'd be kind of fun.
Could be. It's getting spicy for sure. And we're going to get into Rossi in a couple minutes. I'm excited about that. That's a very intriguing conversation right there.
Yes, it is.
But Tyson Foerster signed a bridge deal, and there was some speculation for a few minutes that maybe he could sign a longer term thing. I don't know. That would probably be more beneficial for the Flyers, but maybe a little bit more of a gamble on their part, but one that could pay off for them in the long run. But Tyson Foerster decided to gamble on himself, so he signed a 2-year, $7.5 million contract on Thursday. AAV is $3.75 million, so $3.75 million cap hit a season. I like this a lot. I think that's a good figure for Typho to be making. And frankly, I think for the value he gives you defensively, you're getting a little bit of a discount right now. Yeah. But yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is a very fair contract for him right now. And that's quite literally the whole point of a bridge, right? Like, you go ahead, you secure a little bit of a bag, and then you ride that out for a couple of years, and then boom, you pop off, and then you get a big payday. For the Flyers and for Tyson Foerster's sake, let's hope that that is what happens. Let's hope that, this season he takes a major step forward. And then the season after that, maybe he takes an even bigger step forward. And then it's time for him to get, 8 mil, like 9 mil. Like, just given how much the cap is going up, players are going to start making 8 and 9 mil all the time.
Especially somebody who can do as much as Tyson Foerster can, because Tyson Foerster is a guy, when we talk about him, we say like his potential is like a light version of Mark Stone, which is pretty fantastic, because Mark Stone is one of the best defensive wingers most of us have ever seen. I think the only other guy who gets talked about as a defensive, Marian Hossa is the only other guy I've really heard it talked about as good defensively as a winger as Mark Stone is. And Tyson Foerster, I think, if he can turn into any version of Mark Stone, is pretty outstanding. And look, he finished last season. It was funny because like he is streaky as far as his scoring goes. And we were a little worried that he was not going to surpass his goal total from the previous season, but he ended up surpassing it by 5. So he scored 25 goals, 18 assists, 43 points. So some nice progress. He had 20 goals, 13 assists, 33 points in his first season. So yeah, Typho really does look like he's progressing. If he could score 30, if he could score 30 and play top-notch, top 6 defense for you, that is a great damn player to have on your team, especially when you're looking to make that next step.
Yeah, and another thing to take into consideration here, I think he can certainly hit 30. And I think, he could do it as early as the season. And the reason I say that is because of the goals he's scored this year, like he scored 8 on the power play, right? That was a terrible power play, Steve. It was horrible. And it makes you wonder, like, how many could he score on a good power play? And I don't know. I wonder if, maybe next year he gets like 14 power play goals or something like that. There could be a jump that could happen, like what if it turns out that like in this new iteration, under this new coaching staff, maybe he becomes kind of one of the power play aces. He hasn't been, but that's not to say that it's impossible that he would be, So maybe under this new coaching staff, he could kind of flourish under a new power play, because it certainly wasn't happening under Rocky Thompson.
Obviously. I am so excited to actually be getting change from this team. Like, we don't know what the player personnel changes are going to be yet, but seeing the coaching staff is going to change. We've had some frustrations with namely Bradshaw and, Tocchet being a Flyers alumni and a guy who hasn't had a lot of success elsewhere, but it doesn't, putting all that aside, we want to remain optimistic. We want to think, okay, the Flyers are going to do well now in the next few seasons. Like, we want to try and shift into that mode. It seems like the Flyers are trying to shift in that mode. You never want to go in too negative if you can help it. You couldn't really help it when Tortorella came in because of a lot of the moves they made, and also Tortorella's reputation. Tocchet, we've talked about this. He is known as a lot more well liked by the players, with the exception of Elias Pettersson. But let's put him aside. Now, I think Foerster is like such a key guy, but yeah, like the coaching staff difference is going to be huge. I can't wait to see a newfangled power play. I can't wait to see Mishkov, like whatever he does under this new regime, but also to see how they use Foerster, because he was used a lot with Noah Cates in often a shutdown role. There were games where they were the shutdown line because the Flyers center depth was lousy and, they didn't really have much of a choice. And I don't know if they're going to break that pairing up or what. A lot of it's going to depend on what kind of moves they might make for the rest of the season. But I want to see Foerster hit that. If Foerster and Mishkov both hit 30 goals next season, and you got to think that there's a good chance that happens, you got to feel pretty good about this team's chances for at least competing for a playoff spot.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, we kind of talked a little bit about it last week. Or maybe it was the week before. I can't remember, Steve. Time doesn't exist. But
it doesn't.
But I feel like next year is the year where I'm going to start having some expectations for the Flyers, and I want to see them take a considerable leap. Not a huge leap, but like a noticeable, a step forward. And one of the reasons I say that is because I'm expecting Matvei Mishkov to really, I'm not saying he needs to have 100 points or else he's a disgrace. I'm not saying that, but I am saying, who's to say? I mean, he's already hit 60 points as a rookie. Why not 70? You know what I mean? So maybe that happens. Tyson Foerster, he's at the age now where it's like, you know what? Let's see what else he got. What else he got, Tyson?
Show me what you got.
Show me a 30-goal season. I don't care. Listen, if he has a 50-point season, I would lose my mind, Steve. That'd be great. That'd be incredible. 30 goals, 20 assists. That would be very, very good. I'd be happy with that.
I would love that. I think if you can get him to 50 points and 30 goals, you can get Mishkov to 70 points and 30 goals. You've got a hell of a team on. I mean, TK, if TK had more support, I think TK should have easily hit a point per game pace. He ended up hitting 76, which is really good. That's nothing to sneer at all. But he should have gotten more.
It's crazy that he still got, it's actually impressive that he got 70 plus points, considering just how in his head he was for 2 straight months. Dude, it was bad. He admitted it. He was like, dude, I was I'm in my own head. It's hard to get out of this and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I don't know if he ever really totally got out of it. I know he ended his scoring drought, but he never looked the same way that he did earlier on in the season before Four Nations. And he admitted after the season too. He was like, yeah, I was really going hard to try and make Team Canada. And then when I did, I was gassed. And so, yeah, it makes you wonder, he may try and do the same thing next year to make the Olympic team, but I don't know, man.
I think it's going to, honestly, I think it's going to make a difference having a team that's more in the mix, because I think these guys were painfully aware that this team was going to kind of suck this year.
Yeah.
Between having their backup goaltender was Ivan Fedotov, one of their best players was a 20-year-old rookie. There were a lot of factors against this team, and I think that made TK pretty loose and confident at the beginning, and he also pushed for that. But I think he's going to, and I think he admitted that if they were pushing for a playoff spot, that drought would have probably been worse on him mentally at the end of the day. But, I think those are going to be different factors. So here's an interesting thing. I'm looking at the game log for TK right now. So the Flyers' final game of the regular season was April 17th. When do you think TK's last goal of the season was scored?
When was it? April 17th?
April 17th is the last game of the season.
His last goal of the season was certainly in March. I'm going to say March 18th.
March 23rd against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty bad little drought right there.
It's not good. He had several droughts, man. Like after Four Nations, he just couldn't score. And
well, he scored in back-to-back games, the 22nd and the 23rd.
Mhm.
And then before that, he hadn't scored since February 8th against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
It was over a month.
And then before that, he hadn't scored since January 18th against the New Jersey Devils.
Mhm.
And we're talking at the beginning of the season, like for a long time, he was easily in the lead for Flyers goals.
Yeah.
It wasn't close.
Mhm.
And then the fact that Mishkov surpassed him at the end of the season is just wild to think about.
I remember there was a point where from like January to the end of the season, there was a point where he was averaging less than 1 goal per month.
Ooh.
Which was now granted, it's only like a couple months, but like still, that's real bad. You don't want that. You don't want your best, the highest paid player on your team should not be scoring 1 goal a month. I don't care if it's only a 2-month sample size. That's too many months with 1 goal. Like that's real bad. So.
It's really bad. And again, if this team was competing for a playoff spot, that would have been a big black eye. Like the previous season when the Flyers were in the mix until basically the last day of the season, you know, having a drought like that from TK would have been a big thing that like the more impatient fans in the fan base could have pointed to and said, this was a problem that he didn't do that. Now, again, the circumstances are different this season. And also it's been better that the Flyers it's better long-term. The Flyers haven't made the playoffs the past 2 seasons because they've gotten better draft picks, but it also sucks because we want to see that. I was rooting for that team to make the playoffs a little bit. I know they would have gotten smoked, but I just miss playoff hockey so bad. I want to see it so damn bad.
I miss, whenever I have that itch to see like playoff Flyers hockey, I just watch the Mike Richards shift video and I'm like, dude, one day it's going to be tied 3-3. Flyers, Devils, wild card round at the Farg, the Xbox.
Oh.
And Mishkov is just going to like score the game winner. And the place is going to go fucking berserk. It'll be game 7, Steve. People are throwing their bras onto the ice like the good old days. People are throwing stuff onto the ice, much like Maple Leafs fans, but this time it'll be clothing.
Oh man! Thank God we're not a Maple Leafs podcast right now.
Non-jerseys, I should say. Yeah, people won't be throwing their jerseys on the ice.
My boxer briefs are going onto the ice, no doubt.
Yeah, what would you throw your boxer briefs? I would do that.
There's no way they're getting off.
Oh, well, what I would do is, I think during intermission, before overtime, I would be like, well, we're going to win in overtime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the bathroom, take off my boxers, and then go commando for the rest of the game, taking it for the team. And then when someone scores, I throw my underwear onto the ice.
I will say that
that's what you got to do, Steve.
Playoff games are typically in the summer. And all of my shorts are much comfier than my jeans.
Yeah.
So if there was a time that I would go commando, it would be with my soft, comfortable shorts on as opposed to my jeans, which are not great for Mr. Johnson.
Or get some good Lululemon joggers. Those things rock. They're way too expensive, far overpriced, but they're good.
Are they a little too form-fitting for the downtown region?
Steve, that's just something that you just gotta let it happen, you know? Like,
I'm just going to put it this way. I'm not John Hamm, so I don't know if that's a flattering look for me.
Bold of you to say that I wouldn't find it flattering, Steve.
I don't think anybody would. That includes Emily.
Yeah.
It's not the look. I'll throw my Mansier out onto the ice.
There you go. I think that'll be fun too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have a Mansier for the record, or a bro. I don't have either of them. Frank Costanza be damned. But one of the guys, there's a guy out there So one of the big problems for the Flyers, is the center position.
Mhm.
And it just so happens that the Minnesota Wild have a young center that they don't seem too keen on.
Steve.
And the Flyers have been rumored to maybe be in on the mix for this guy. And we've seen a lot of rumors flying around about this. And you have to remember with rumors, half of them are bullshit. Okay. So find your way through it. Take it all with a grain of salt. But the fact that the Flyers' names are even being mentioned is undoubtedly a good thing. But Marco Rossi, who we've mentioned a bunch on this podcast, who you're a huge fan of, my friend, is available on the trade block.
I have been a Marco Rossi stan since before he was drafted. When he was playing for the Ottawa 67s, I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I remember at the time I was covering the Minnesota Wild for SB Nation, RIP. And basically it was, I think that was like the COVID year. It was like I think it was, maybe it wasn't, I can't remember, but it's been forever. But I remember he fell to the Wild, and I was like, if these fucking idiots don't take Marco Rossi, they are as dumb as an organization as people think they are. And they did it. They actually took Marco Rossi, and in the end, it's turning out that they are the dumb organization that everyone thinks they are, because now they're trading him. Because
they are who we thought they were.
Because they are who we thought they were, Steve. And we're not letting them off the hook this time. The Flyers, they're going to sweep in there and they're going to get them. Now, I know that you're right. There's a lot of rumors going on right now. One thing that is a fact, I mean, there's too much noise for it to not be fact, is that he is out there. Marco Rossi is going to get traded. Like, unless something crazy happens, it sure sounds like they want him gone. Because
it sounds like they want him gone. It sounds like he's unhappy. He was used in fourth line capacity in the final playoff game for them, right?
Yes. He led the team in points, Steve. What are we doing?
A team with Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah, well,
granted he was hurt, but
he missed like most of the season, but
he's still like, like that. The thing is, that team, like, it's impressive that Rossi was up there and scoring.
Yeah. And like,
and he's young. He's very young.
He's 23. He's 23 years old, Steve. And he got 60 plus points. Like, most of those came without Kirill Kaprizov.
We were just talking about how happy we would be if Tyson Foerster got 50 points.
Yeah.
Marco Rossi just got 60.
Unbelievable. He had 24 goals, 36 assists. So I just, I have been bullish, so bullish about this, this player. I love Marco Rossi, and it's a match made in heaven, Steve. The Flyers need a center. He is a center. He's a good center, and he's young. Get out there and make this happen. And so I just want to pull up his stats because I want to confirm. But like, I know that he's a phenomenal player, and he's exactly what the Flyers need. And now they're going to have to give something up to get him. The Flyers don't seem interested in that exactly. It certainly seems like there's a little bit of hesitation there based on these rumors. That's the key word, rumors. But Steve, according to one of these rumors, the Flyers are hesitant to give up a first-round pick for this guy. That's blasphemy, if that's true. Excuse me. I was incorrect. Matt Boldy led the Wild in points this season.
You idiot. You are the dumbest man alive, let me tell you.
I am a dumb bitch. I really am.
You moron. Just so stupid. But, I think that is some gamesmanship from Danny Briere out there, because look, you shouldn't trade the number 6 pick for anything less than a stud, right? Because you're going to get a good player there. You're going to get, at worst, you're getting somebody like Martone, or if you're feeling really stupid, Brady Martin. Don't do it. I don't think he's going to do it. I think it's just lazy rumors from the insiders. But you're likely going to get a very good player at 6, and don't really trade that unless you're getting an absolute stud. Rossi's very good, though. He's not quite an absolute stud, but like, he's a really good player. I would in a heartbeat trade one of the later picks, especially the Oilers pick. The Oilers pick, now that they're going to the Stanley Cup Final, the Oilers pick it's not worthless by any means. Like you're still probably going to get a talented hockey player.
It's a second
at
round
that point.
pick.
But yeah, it's basically a second round pick. Like it's a real late pick. And yeah, you could probably get somebody good, but you're not going to get somebody better than Marco Rossi is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Like what, 7-8 years ago, the 31st or 32nd pick, that's a second round pick. There were not 32 teams that long ago. So yeah, I think I'm very much in favor of making that trade, getting rid of that Oilers pick. Now, granted, the Wild are probably looking at that. They're not going to be disillusioned and thinking like, listen, we know what that is. That's basically a second round pick. Like you have to give up a little bit more than that. Listen, I would be okay with the Colorado pick. I would not be opposed to trading that pick because you know what? You're using that to essentially purchase someone who's essentially a first round pick player. You know, like Marco Rossi was drafted. I can't remember exactly what his position was, but he was an early first round pick. And you know, why not use that draft capital to acquire someone of that talent who may not even be close to reaching his ceiling yet? He's only 23.
Right. I understand why he would be putting this out there as, you know, Danny Briere being he in this case, because it's gamesmanship. It's you leak certain things to the media, you play this game where you're basically saying like, no, we wouldn't do this by any means. You know, you're trying to play the game. It's all poker at the end of the day. They're playing poker through the media, and it becomes more transparent every year just how much they're playing poker in this regard. So it's frustrating to read all this. Somebody who is so plugged in as we are, you know, we're seeing all the rumors, we're seeing all the comments. I say this like we're getting the texts directly from the agents.
We're not.
Like, we don't get that. Okay. Even my fake insider Brindy, he's not getting it. But like, that's a thing I've been thinking of. I'll talk about that later. But it's just not a thing, right? Like I'm sorry, like I've got a little sidetracked here, but going back to it, like there is just a lot of bullshit out there. Okay. So take it all with a grain of salt. The big takeaway for me is the Flyers are interested and there are comments about it. And I think there's some back and forth. They might be saying they haven't talked to Bill Guerin, but I don't know if I'm convinced that they haven't talked to Bill Guerin.
There's dialogue. It's like, I don't think these rumors are coming out unless dialogue has happened. Could the details of these rumors be accurate? No, maybe, but maybe not. And so, you know, like you have to think that the Flyers are smart enough to realize this is a really, really good young center. We need this. We need a player like this. And listen, if the Flyers get Marco Rossi, that does not solve their center problem. Let's be real. That he is not. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's not a 1C because who knows what can happen. But like more than likely, he's a really, really good 2C. And then from there, like you got to get yourself a 1C, a bona fide 1C somewhere. Rossi will probably in all likelihood not be that, but that doesn't mean that it's still okay to go out and get a good young center who may not be a 1C. There are other ways to acquire a 1C one day.
Well, this is where the draft of it all is so interesting too, because if the Flyers ended up in the top 4, they were almost assuredly going to get a center who would likely be maybe not necessarily a slam dunk 1C, but with the capability. At 6, everything is so up in the air. It is so up in the air. The guys that are floating around at 6, you know, we're talking a lot like Schaefer's not going to be there. Okay. Schaefer is going top 3. I'd be very surprised if he fell out.
Misa's not going to be there.
Misa, I'm not holding my breath for Misa at all. He sounds amazing. I don't think there's a chance in hell he's there. However, after that, it gets really fuzzy. You know, you keep hearing about Desnoyers being around. Desnoyers could go anywhere from, I think, 3 to 7 at this point.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me anywhere in that range. So you hear about Desnoyers a lot. You hear about Hagens a lot. Hagens sounds great. I would love if Hagens fell to the Flyers.
I would really like that a lot.
Yeah. Hagen's such an interesting one. You look over,
especially after he singled out liking Claude Giroux. He was a big Claude Giroux fan. So
Well, we're something of a Claude Giroux expert ourselves over here.
Yes, we are.
But yeah, you've got Hagens, you've got Desnoyers, you've got Frondel. Frondel has a real possibility of potentially being available at 6, and I've heard some pro Frondel comments on the Flyers end there, or at least like seen it floating around the internet. And then there's of course, so Jake O'Brien's an interesting one. Jake O'Brien, I've seen mocked to the Flyers a couple times. I think the Pronman Wheeler latest mock draft they did had Jake O'Brien to the Flyers at 6. And I was ready to kind of say, like, Pronman doesn't know what he's talking about with the Flyers. And then I look back at like his last 3 mocks from right before the draft, and they were like dead on. I was like, oh, well, there could be some smoke to that. O'Brien is an interesting one. I've heard some good stuff about him. I like him a lot more than what I've heard about Brady Martin, there was a funny comment from old Kersey the other day about Rafi Torres and Brady Martin, that doesn't seem accurate based on what I've heard about Brady Martin.
I'm gonna disagree with Kevin Kurz on that one.
Yeah, but I think he was saying, like, somebody said like Rafi Torres was drafted at 6, and he was like, well, Rafi Torres did some good stuff or something like that. It was like, no, he was a notorious.
Yeah, he was like Delta difficult and or something like that.
Yeah, but like Rafi Torres was like a notorious, like, he wasn't a goon, but he
dirty,
did some
dirty player.
Plays. He was dirty as hell. Malkin-esque, but without the talent of Malkin.
Mm-hmm.
But Torres is notorious over there. And then, of course, you have... So Martin, I mean, he sounds like a big hitter. He sounds like a real, like, Flyers type from the Holmgren or Clark eras over there. I don't know if current era Flyers are going for that. Roger McQueen floats around. I would be very mad if the Flyers took him at 6. If they did what Charlie O'Connor's floated and traded up one of the other picks to try and get him, I'd be okay with that. But I don't like getting him with the 6 just due to his injury problems. It gives me Nolan Patrick just flashbacks, and I don't like that.
Brandon Wheat Kings too. The Wheat Kings are cursed.
They are cursed.
Young players who are injury prone.
And he's got neck issues, or is it back issues?
I believe it's back.
After Sean Couturier, freaks me out. I'm not into it. And then, of course, so the interesting thing in all of this too, though, is we talk about the center position, but one of the guys that there's a possibility of falling to the Flyers at 6, and he probably shouldn't, is Porter Martone, who is a big body winger right there, who it sounds like he's got a really nice scoring touch. Martone's available at 6. And let's say like Hagens goes in the top 5 like he should. Let's say it goes like Schaefer, Misa, Schaefer, Misa, Frondel, Hagens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Schaefer, Misa, Frondel, Hagens, Desnoyers. Okay, let's say it goes like that. Are you going Martone or O'Brien?
Probably Martone.
I think Martone might have the bigger ceiling, and it's frustrating to take another winger. But what I would love, Martone falls to you, then use one of the other picks. Trade for our buddy over here, Marco Rossi.
Oh my goodness, Steve.
Profit.
Look at the big brain on Steve. I think that's a good idea. And like, listen, I do support the take the best player available ideology.
You can always trade assets, you can always make trades.
Yeah. If you have a surplus in something and you see, like, let's pretend like right now you got, in terms of right wingers, you got Konechny, you got Mishkov, you got, Bobby Brink, you got, I don't know, like who's the right wing on the 4th? Is that, I guess Garnet Hathaway?
Yeah. Gary Haths.
So like, I mean, that's some good wingers right there. If there's a kid who's just crushing it in, juniors or college or the AHL with the Phantoms, like it's okay to, and you're totally confident that can translate to the NHL after giving him a look-see, then, maybe make that trade. Obviously you can't really trade. You're not going to trade Mishkov or Konechny, especially not Mishkov, but like, you're not going to trade Konechny now either because of the contract. But like, and listen, man, it pains me to say, but like, I love me some Bobby Brink, but if it comes down to and I think we're going to get into this a little bit, so I don't want
I
to
actually, this is a great transition. Let's talk about it right now. So
who would you trade?
Right. Who would you trade? So that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot. We had a conversation in the Slack recently that by recently, I mean, this actually happened like 3 weeks ago, but we've been so loaded up with topics over the past like 3 podcasts that I haven't been able to get it in. So this week I'm getting it in, which that sounded dirty.
I was about to say, yeah.
Hey,
nice, Steve.
Yeah. I almost said Bazinga, which is a horrible catchphrase from a show I'll never watch in my life. Yeah. But no offense to you Big Bang lovers out there, but it ain't for me. But so from a scale of shut it down to Flavor Town.
Yes.
Which players would you be likely to trade? And I think Bobby Brink, as much I love Bobby Brink, I think he's a lot of fun. I'd trade his ass in a second for a Marco Rossi.
There are very few players who I would not trade for Marco Rossi.
Yeah. The only guys I'd really have some hesitation, like I think Tyson Foerster I'd have some hesitation. Like I like Tyson Foerster's defensive game so much, and the fact that he's already potted 25 goals and he has the potential for 30 plus. I think Tyson Foerster is just such a fantastic piece for this team moving forward. I'm on the verge of shutting this sucker. Shut it down.
Yeah.
So
like optimally, all right. So I'll say this. And this doesn't
have to necessarily just be for Marco Rossi. Like anybody like in that center area that you need addressing, because really that's the main area they would be making a big trade for.
Well, I'm just gonna say, let's say it is Rossi. That's what I'll do. Or you know what? How about just like a top 6 center? Doesn't have to be Rossi. Yeah. So I would hesitantly trade Tyson Foerster. But I wouldn't be happy about it. But like, again, that just goes to show my confidence in my belief in the player of Marco Rossi in this instance. Or if it's another sure thing, top 6 NHL center. I think that's really important for the Flyers right now, is to shore up the middle of the ice. They are struggling, and it's so hard to get players like that. And so sometimes you got to take a sacrifice.
Yeah, I think that's just, I don't know. My faith in Rossi, I think, doesn't quite go to the degree that I'm sacrificing Tyson Foerster. But Bobby Brink, and it's funny because we're talking point differential of 2 points here, but Tyson Foerster, big, defense good, where Bobby Brink, small, defense bad, which is a difference maker for me. I do love Bobby Brink's creativity in the offensive zone. I think my main thing with Bobby Brink is Tyson Foerster, I see him in the top 6 for the Flyers for years to come. And Bobby Brink, I'm not so sure. I think he might be more of like a third line scoring winger. But
see,
I love if he proved me wrong.
I can see it though. And the reason why is because we've seen how good he is at 5-on-5. He hardly contributed on the power play this year. On a good power play, it's pretty easy to assume that he would have a substantial bump in point production. And plus, his defensive game did improve.
It did improve. It was a hot mess last season.
Yeah, like I remember, I think it was Torts actually. Torts was just singing his praises towards the end of the year. He really, really liked what Bobby Brink was becoming. I'm a really big fan of Bobby Brink. I think he's developing. He's showing very encouraging development. And I believe in him. I believe in Bobby Brink. But that said, you have to make a sacrifice to get a good player. And I would also trade Bobby Brink as well.
Bobby Brink, I think, is, I would definitely trade Bobby Brink. And let's complete the line here. Noah Cates, who I love. I think Noah Cates is awesome. He does have a few years, though, on Brink and Foerster. You know, he's past his mid-20s. He's now on the verge of his late 20s. You know, he's, I think he's still mid-20s, but like he's 26, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that counts.
Approaching the late 20s. Great defensive game. I love what Noah Cates brings defensively. I think he was such a solid player for this team this year. Showed a nice scoring touch, put up 37 points this year. Noah Cates is an awesome guy to have in your team. No hesitation for me. We're going to Flavor Town as far as trading him for a top Flavor 6 Town center.
Easily. I would trade him. Not a question.
And I'd say also not a question of Sean Couturier, but nobody wants that contract.
I was going to say, what about the other center, Steve?
Sean Couturier is undoubtedly a center, and that's the only role he could possibly fulfill on this team. Right. He's not one of those centers you're switching out to the wing. There's no point in having Sean Couturier at the wing, but because he's their best at faceoffs easily. Mm-hmm. So Couturier being good at faceoffs, and also, he's got the head for the defensive game and everything. One of their few plus players, not that plus minus means much, but hey, he was a +1, and most of these jabronis are like -17, 18 over there. So I just said that about our two best players in Konechny and Michkov. But, Couturier, we all know he's a great defensive player when he's on his game. But the problem is his contract is just insane.
It's awful. Yeah. And you know what? You really like the timing of the contract was strange.
I don't know why they let Chuck Fletcher do anything for that last year. Like, he should have been on thin ice, and he should have just been not allowed to do anything. Mm-hmm. And he signs that Couturier contract,
the Sanheim
contract, which that one seems to be working out pretty good so far.
It's okay. Yeah, it's not bad.
I think that's going to look a lot better as the cap goes up, to be honest. Like having $6 million a season defenseman locked up who is playing top pair minutes.
On that note, Steve, would you trade Travis Sanheim? I would not. I would shut that one down.
You're shutting it down.
I would shut that one down. Yeah.
That one's a tough one for me. I don't mind the contract too much. He is top six. It would depend on who the guy is, to be honest. But yeah, I'm leaning more towards shut it down myself.
You trade Travis Sanheim. What do you have on the honestly? Like, what's the closest thing you have to a number one defenseman?
Right. I mean, it's probably Cam York horrible. At that point. And I like Cam York, but I don't. But I also like Cam York's one of those guys who there's a lot of questions about Cam York this offseason.
I would trade Cam York.
Cam York, I think I would trade. I didn't like whatever the heck went down with him and John Tortorella. It showed. I'm feeling like it was a lack of professionalism on Cam York's part. I know there's some frustration with your coach and everything, but whatever the confrontation that he got into him was that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. And you should be able to control yourself a little bit more than that. And I know Torts is the ultimate needler, the ultimate guy who pisses you off, but it shouldn't have gotten to that point on both their ends. So that makes me question Cam York a little bit. And just the fact that I think this was a great opportunity this season for him to really step up and cement himself as a mainstay of this team. He's an RFA. This was an RFA contract here is not the same as a UFA contract here, right? Where any team can pay you. I mean, any team can pay you for an offer sheet, but you'd have to really go above and beyond or show some high end potential. And I don't think he's shown us anything that high end that makes you go there's not a chance in hell Cam York can leave this team.
Yeah, no, I like him. But I think there's a couple things. One, I want to see more development coming from him. I want to see him taking that next step, whether it's defensively or offensively. There was a point where I was seeing his offense start to get going, and I was like, lovely. This is very good. I enjoy this. And then that took a step back, and his defense got a little bit better. But it just seems like it's been a lot of up and down. I would like for the waves to kind of even out and just stay the same, but it's a lot of this. And I don't know, not to reference that Vontae Davis clip from Hard Knocks back in the day. R.I.P. Vontae Davis. But yeah, I think I would like to see a little bit more from Cam York. And honestly, how will he do with Rick Tocchet?
That's one of my biggest questions. Is there's a lot of guys I'm wondering how they're going to do with Rick Tocchet. Cam York's one of them for sure.
Who are the other ones? Because honestly, I think Konechny will do great.
Konechny, I don't have any I have all the faith in the world in him at this point.
If he can make Torts, if he can make Torts, he was one of Torts' favorite players. He loved Konechny. He drove him crazy. Yeah. Torts admitted all the time, he drives me fucking insane. But he's a great player. So, so Konechny, I think, will do great with Tocchet. Obviously, Michkov is going to be great with Tocchet, I think.
Who wouldn't love Michkov? I mean, he's just the man.
I don't think the Flyers hire Tocchet unless it was slam dunk, like you and Mishkov are going to vibe. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we all heard Sean Couturier's reaction where he was like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a phone call. What a video.
I do think he'll like Coots. I really do, because he plays the right way.
It's shocking to me that John Tortorella and Coots didn't get along. Like, I cannot believe that. But there were a lot of shockers there. Like, I couldn't believe that Kevin Hayes and Torts didn't get along to the point that Kevin Hayes had to get traded for nothing to the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah, I think that was more just like, I wonder if that was just like a personality clash, because like Kevin Hayes is like this fun, like goofball dude, and Torts, I don't know how he does with players like that. So
right, well, clearly not good.
Yeah, but yeah, so like I don't know, man. Cam York, I'm not totally sure how he's going to do with Tocchet.
Yeah, I think, well, Cam York is just increasingly, I don't know, like a lot's going to depend on who they get in the coming drafts too. There might be some free agents that could be intriguing on defense.
Another player I wonder who, like how they'll do with Tocchet is Tippett. And that brings up another question, Steve. Would you trade? We've been talking about this in the BSH Slack so much. 1-for-1 Tippett for Rossi. Would you do that? I would do it totally so fast. Problem is I don't think 1-for-1 would happen.
No,
I don't think that at all.
It shouldn't happen. And this is just because, and I want Owen Tippett to work out so bad because what he does on his best day is ridiculous. It's entertaining. Like, he gives you what you want from a modern hockey player, where he's got the size and the speed and the skill. On his best day, Owen Tippett's that 4-point powerhouse from that Columbus Blue Jackets game that just tears it up. He's doing the spinorama against the Dallas Stars. You know, Owen Tippett can bring it when he is really, really on, but he's 26 now. Okay. He has not cracked 30 goals. He's come close. He got 28 the previous season, 27 the season before. I thought he was going to do it this year. He took a big step back this season. Yeah. And that was a bummer for me. And it makes me concerned. I don't want to trade him lightly. Like, I don't want to trade him for nothing, but if you're trading him for a guy that could be a key piece for this team and really cement, because they got wingers and they got wingers in the pipeline, you know, they're going to have wingers. Center's the real pain point there. And I want more from Tippett, you know, even if he doesn't get traded. I'm not expecting him to get traded, but if he doesn't get traded, I really want to see a lot out of him next season. I want to see him. So his career high is 53 points. I would love to see him at 60. I think he's very capable of it. And I want to see him hit 30 goals. And
he can hit 30. That's not a question. I know
he can hit 30. Well, but if he hits 30, I think he can hit 60. He's getting top 6 minutes.
He can hit 60.
Part. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, Steve, where I'm at is I think Owen Tippett is absolutely capable of 70 points. I think he has that. I swear to God, I don't know. Am I saying that he's going to? No, not at all. Because
but he has the physical attributes. Like
he has.
He's got the shot. He's got the speed, but he can't hit the fucking net to save his life sometimes.
I do think he has the potential to be a 70-point player. Like, you know, one player who reminds me of this, like, and they're completely separate players, like not similar at all style wise. But like, I remember when Mikael Granlund, whatever it is, when he was on the Wild, he was like his first few seasons as like a full-time player, he was like a 40, 30-point guy, right? Then he explodes for a very nice 69 points. Like just, I don't know, like just goes nuts. And I can see Owen Tippett doing that, where it's like, you know, he's a 40-point guy. Maybe he'll have a 50-point season and then boom, 75 points. You know what I mean? I could just see that happening. Again, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that wouldn't like if Owen Tippett, let's pretend the Flyers trade him and he goes somewhere else. I wouldn't be stunned at all if he just put up a 70-point season. But at the end of the day, even if that were to happen, I would still not regret that trade, you know, because I don't know. It just feels like I don't know. I just want to see more from him. And this is a big year for him if they don't trade him. It's a huge year.
The consistency is a big question. It's a really big question. And I don't know what to make of him at this point. I was excited for him. I thought we actually potentially got not quite a steal in the Claude Giroux trade, but maybe Chuck Fletcher found a diamond in the rough or something. And look, he's done a lot of good things for this team. And as I said, on his best nights, he is so thrilling. He is as fun of a hockey player as there is to watch. I think the only guy more fun on this team at his peak is Matvei Mishkov, because, well, Matvei Mishkov's the one guy on this entire roster that is I ain't trading him for anything less than McDavid. And even then I'm like, I'd pause for a second. Like, obviously McDavid's the GOAT, or not the GOAT, but like, he's the guy, the best in the game, McDavid's unbelievable. So yeah, but like, Mishkov is like just such a gamer.
He's awesome.
We've said everything about Mishkov. We don't need to talk about Mishkov today because we ain't trading him for anything less than McDavid. Okay. I'm putting it out there now.
Maybe McKinnon.
Maybe McKinnon. I do love McKinnon. Oh, I
do
McKinnon.
Too.
He's a friggin' workhorse. I love him.
He's great.
But Mishkov is the one guy that I'm not trading for anything less than a superstar. Mm-hmm. Everybody else, even Travis Konechny, who we
talked about it last year, like we were saying.
I'm not trading him for Marco Rossi, but
yeah.
If I don't know, let's say a top tier center, not one of the elite guys we just talked about. The Flyers trade for any of those guys, I would take off my pants on the podcast and get arrested, but it would be a bad time, but it'd be a good time. But it would be, I would just lose my mind if they did something like that. But Travis Konechny, if you were going to get a truly like very, very good top tier star center at the top, yeah, I would do that. But Travis Konechny, he is the heart and soul of this team. He's really, really a solid player. And I think he's just going to flourish if they can get some more center depth to help this current team. So I wouldn't, there's not a lot I'd trade Travis Konechny for, but I would consider him more than I would Mishkov.
Yeah, I would consider that as well. Obviously it would be hard because I don't think it's really that possible now. Like, I guess anything's possible, but like, it's so unlikely that I'm not even entertaining it.
It doesn't really make sense either. I mean, you signed him very clearly to be your face of the franchise while Mishkov is coming into his own. And Mishkov became the face of the franchise basically overnight.
Overnight, yeah.
And TK's still one of those guys. He's wearing the A. I think there's a very real possibility that if Couturier gets dealt or retires at some point in the next couple seasons, that TK could be the guy wearing the C. I really think it's a possibility.
Oh, I think so. And here's another thing. Like, back to Tyson Foerster, they just signed him to that contract extension. They're not trading Tyson Foerster. Like,
I would be surprised. I'd be surprised in general, just because like he fits the vibes really well. And he's a guy, as I've said, his defensive qualities, his offensive capabilities, like the fact that they actually have goal scorers now. Like that was the big problem during the Claude Giroux era was who scored goals, Wayne Simmons, occasionally Scott Hartnell.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say is if Tyson Foerster was like still unsigned and it's like, late June, then I'd be like, dog, I think you might want to maybe get that Marco Rossi. But the fact that he's signed now, like clearly they're not going to make that trade.
Cates is the interesting one there because Cates is rumored to be not rumored. He's going to arbitration. So, I don't know. It seems like there's a disagreement on the exact value with Noah Cates right now. And again, he's a little bit older than some of these other guys we're talking about. Minnesota boy, Bobby Brink and Noah Cates, both Minnesota boys. Is Paling a Minnesota boy too?
I believe he is.
We got a lot of Minnesota guys. Well, you know why? Chuck Fletcher, but
Chucky.
Yeah, Lakeville, Minnesota was his birthplace.
Yep, that's right.
So and Ryan Paling, obviously, I like Ryan Paling a lot. Would not hesitate.
No, Ryan Paling was not
almost anything.
Ryan Paling was not a Fletcher acquisition, but
that's true. That's true. Yeah. But it feels Fletcher-esque. But I do like Paling.
Yeah.
I like Paling because he's got some speed that down in the bottom six, and he's been a solid presence down there.
I think he's a perfect 4C. Perfect.
Yeah, no, he can fill in at 3C whenever you need him to, and it doesn't feel like a huge downgrade. Because sometimes when like, not to throw Scott Lawton under the bus, but like when Scott Lawton would have to step in there at 3C, you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, or to take it back to a decade ago or so, Chris Vandevelde. When Chris Vandevelde get in there, you're like, oh, what are we doing, Dave Hackstall? Do I have to see Chris Vandevelde for 12 minutes tonight? I don't want to see that.
Awful. I still can't believe that. But
I think I got one more big one. One more big one for you. Okay.
Yeah, what's that?
Jamie Drysdale.
Flavortown, baby.
Flavortown, you're all for trade.
Take me to Flavortown. I like Jamie Drysdale, and I do think he still has potential. I'm not ready to give up on him, but if we're talking to the Wild about Marco Rossi, and they're like, all right, give us a second round pick and Jamie Drysdale, I'm like, you bet your ass. Let's do it right now.
No, that's an intriguing trade right there. I think Jamie Drysdale came a long way last season, and I like the player. I love just like, much like with Owen Tippett, I love the raw physical skills, right? Like, I think his skating is fantastic. I think he's got some really good puck skills. His defense, while much better now than it was the beginning of last season, still ain't great. And he's not scoring quite enough to really justify not being great defensively as a defenseman. You know, when Shane Gostisbehere would not have great defensive seasons, but he put up like 50 points.
You're right.
No complaints from my end.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I complaints from the other fans, but not from me.
Yeah. I need to see more of the offense from Jamie Drysdale. And we've seen how he plays when he has that confidence. I think he has the confidence now. I hope it stays that way. This is going to be a big year for him too. You know, like I need to see more of the upward trajectory, and I need to see the consistency. But you know, right now, where we stand right now, I would not hesitate. If the Wild were like, hey, what about Drysdale? Which they would not do, because Drysdale's not a big hulking behemoth of a man. That seems to be what they want to do. So now if they're like, hey, how about Foerster and Nick Seeler? Because they used to have Nick Seeler. And
if they did a Foerster and Nick Seeler, I would drive Nick Seeler to the airport.
I would laugh very hard. I love Nick Seeler. I'm a big Nick Seeler
Nick
defender.
Seeler's, like we were talking about with Ryan Poehling, right? Where Ryan Poehling's like a perfect 4C.
He's a perfect.
Nick Seeler's a perfect 6'7" guy. Where you need him to sit in the press box and eat some fire-shaped pretzels. He's not going to mind. He's going to be fine with it. But then he'll be out there the next night blocking a shot with his face, because that's who Nick Seeler is.
The man. Yeah.
He's not like, every now and then he'll maybe give you a liability play, but it's few and far between.
Yeah, not that often, really. And like, honestly, like NHL defensemen do that all the time. Like, even good defensemen look awful every once in a while. I've seen Drew Doughty get turnstiled so many times, and he's one of the best of this generation. So
yeah, no, it definitely happens quite a bit. And then obviously we're not trading Rasmus Ristolainen for anything.
Yeah, because he's
because he can't be traded, because he gets constantly hurt.
Flyer for life.
But where was the rumor? I saw a rumor floating around like last week that apparently the Flyers, the Leafs really tried to extract Ristolainen, and the Flyers like, no way.
The Leafs apparently offered the Flyers, quote unquote, the moon.
Was it Bruce Garrioch from the Senators beat? I think put that out there.
Perhaps, yeah.
Because like it was like rumored for, I think it was Garrioch from the Senators, like talking about the Senators, like maybe targeting him. I don't know how much I trust that. Like, I think Garrioch is actually a good reporter, so I'm not putting that on him. But I don't know. It's like it feels like too secondhand for me. Like the guy told the other guy, you know, like whisper down the lane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it does kind of sound like that a little bit. So
I don't know. I do know that Keith Jones is the biggest Rasmus Ristolainen head on the planet. I do know that Risto was very good last season before he got hurt yet again, but it's whatever. He's never getting traded. It's not worth talking about. But yeah, we would trade most of this roster is what it comes down to for a proper top six center for this team, except for Matvei Mishkov and maybe not Travis Konecny and maybe not Travis Sanheim.
Yeah, Sanheim I would keep. I really would, because like
he is a top pairing guy.
And I'm excited to see him under Tocchet, because Tocchett's already fucking over the moon about it. He had
some very positive comments. Yeah.
He's so excited to coach Travis Sanheim. So I'm very curious to see how that goes.
Sanheim's really turned himself into a workhorse post Ivan Provorov. That was one of the big concerns when the Flyers traded Provorov away. Was Provorov, whatever you thought about his play for the last couple of years here, he was still eating a ton of minutes. Like he was playing like 25, 26 minutes a night. So you were worried about who we were going to play those minutes, and Sanheim has stepped up to the plate for the most part. You know, there are some up and down stretches with his play, but overall, I've been very happy with it. I think if you could get him a proper partner at the top, Travis Sanheim's a top pairing defenseman.
Oh, I think he is. Yeah, I think he can be a top pairing defenseman. Is he like an ideal top pairing defenseman? Probably not, but like he certainly can play that role. I would
say he could be. I think he's like an ideal like number 2. I think you need somebody to play with him though.
Mm-hmm. Like optimally, I would like for him to be a second pair defenseman, but also I feel like that would be like luxury situation. You know what I mean? Like
right.
That's I'm talking. That's Nashville Predators from a few years ago when they had like everybody. You know what I mean?
Ryan
like
Ellis,
Ryan Ellis, PK Subban, Yosef. Like crazy.
They're just a defense. Like the Eagles are a quarterback factory. The Predators are a defenseman factory.
Right. Yeah. So that would be what I'm thinking is like on that kind of team, he would be a second pair defenseman.
Yeah.
But on the Flyers, like I'm totally fine with him being a 1B, like a second, a number 2 guy. I think that would be totally fine if they get somehow a really, 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 really good player to play 1D. So
excellent.
Well,
next week we'll get a little bit more. I imagine we're not going to have a ton of news next week, but you never know. But we'll probably try to get a little bit more into some of the draft topics. But I don't know. I think we know the guys for the top like 7, 8 at this point. We've talked about them a lot, but hey, why not talk about them some more? We'll see what happens. Real quick before we sign off, we have our Stanley Cup matchup, and stop me if you've heard this one before.
Let's hold on, Steve. Let me take a guess. It's the Panthers in the Lurs, right?
The Lurs?
The Lurs, yes.
Oh, yeah. The Oil Boys. I thought
yes.
I've never heard Lurs about
the Lurs. Yeah, the Panthers and the Lurs.
Lurs Ulrich over there.
Oilers is too drawn out. We need to shorten the name. So the
Oilers is Lurs feels hard to say.
Lurs, it does. Yeah, Oilers seems way easier to say than Lurs.
Oilers is way easier to say. Yeah, I'd rather call them the Ton. Edmonton. The ton.
Yeah.
The ton. Yeah. They're tons of fun to watch. But yeah, we're getting a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup, and we're all a little disappointed about it just because we wanted some variety. But at the same time, it was a pretty damn good Stanley Cup final last year. So we're going to see some good hockey. I think we're all rooting for the Oilers this year, though. We've had a little bit too much of the Sun Belt. You're not?
Nope. Go Panthers.
Because Operation McDavid 2026?
Operation McDavid 2026. I need him to get as fed up as possible. And, of course, Tkachuk is just the man. We've talked about it. I love Tkachuk.
You do. You love Tkachuk.
I love Tkachuk, man.
I do love Operation McDavid 2026. And who knows what they talked about on that plane ride back from the Four Nations tournament. But look.
I need it.
I'm tired of the Sun Belt wins. And Canada deserves this. Like, listen,
no, don't. Steve, who are you?
I'm somebody who's tired of seeing Florida win hockey all the time.
Unbelievable. I will say it is dope as fuck when there's a home Stanley Cup game in Edmonton and they're doing like the national anthem and everyone in the crowd is singing. There's the guy in the stands and everyone's around him. They're singing.
Well, and it's going to be extra intense this year with all the political tension between the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be like Four Nations all over again.
It's going to be good. Yeah.
It's going to be
good. We might see some fights.
Great. I'm into it. I'm into it big time. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we got our Stanley Cup prediction. What are you feeling right now?
Even though I'm rooting for the Panthers, I'm going to say Oilers in 6.
I'm going Oilers 7.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
going down to the wire.
Yeah. Okay.
I am dubious though, just because of the goaltending situation where, man, Bobrovsky,
he's so good, man.
Imagine having him and letting him go.
Let's end this before I throw up.
He's bounced around a lot. He's had to build himself up to this point. He just became a playoff stud a couple years ago. That's where he is. So we all miss him. I've talked about this a lot. I've been podcasting as long as the Flyers got rid of him. So that's you've got years and years of content to look up for my takes on that. But they should have kept him on the force, but they didn't. So
sad.
Yeah, probably I think a summer episode is the Flyers quarter century should have kept team. but we'll get to that at some point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that'll happen at some stage.
Yes, absolutely. We are going to go sign off and enjoy our Friday nights, though. You'll probably be hearing this Saturday morning. Yeah, whatever. We'll see how I go tonight. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, folks. We truly love and appreciate you all. Quigster, where can people find you on the socials for comments and such?
Oh boy, you can find me at Ryan Quigs with a Z. That's where you can find me, Steve.
Quigs with a Z on Blue Sky. You can find me at Flyperbole or at Esteban if it's for hockey purposes. Make it Flyperbole. That's on Blue Sky. I ain't checking that Twitter shit. Screw that. You can find me on Instagram at Flyperbole, TikTok at Flyperbole. All right, folks, be sure to like and subscribe on whatever you may be watching or listening. Much appreciate, rate, review, all that good stuff. But thumbs up if you're on the YouTube. Much appreciated. And we're going to head out of here. Until next time, in the words of the great Gene Hart, good night and good hockey. Wow, 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 wow.